reiterate, anyone who didn't get a lunch can go downstairs through the cafeteria line and get anything you want. And they have vegan options, vegetarian, all of that. So just head on down there if you didn't get a box lunch. Sorry about that. So we're here now to hear from our friends at the Web Accessibility Initiative of the W3C, and especially from our dear friend, Shawn Henry, who's been at AccessU many, many times, usually to bring us updates of the work of WAI in general, but especially of the Education and Outreach Working Group. And I have worked with that group for many years and was chair for, I don't know, about 8 of those years. And for those of you who don't know, the Education and Outreach Working Group, or as we call it, EO, really works to take those almost impenetrable WCAG standards and translate them into tools that people can use. So there are user guides, planning guides, tutorials. It's really, we tried to write in plain language. We use a lot of human-centered approaches in terms of usability and personas and how do people with disabilities use the web, explaining those kinds of things to people in plain language. And of course, as you all know, it's a very cyclical thing because we get the tutorials done and what do you know? The technology is completely changed. They have to be rewritten. And so there's always something new coming out of the Education and Outreach Working Group. And in my opinion, there's a few other people in this room now who have worked on that and continue to work on that group. And in my opinion, it's one of the most important working groups at the W3C because of the way it takes what are really scary and intimidating to so many people, the guidelines themselves, and translates it for people who have to have a practical answer to their daily tasks. So I'm really thrilled and glad to see you out in the world again, Shawn. And I'll turn it over to Shawn Henry and let her walk us through.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, as Sharon said, this was a conference that got me out in the world again. So here we go. All right, I want to talk about WAI and you, how we can work together to advance digital accessibility. I'm going to start out talking about some new and surprising resources from the W3C Web Accessibility Initiative, which I'll just say WAI from now on. Unfortunately, screen readers pronounce that as Y. Oh, well. Okay. So first of all, what's hot? We have a course, Digital Accessibility Foundations course, or Intro to Web Accessibility. It's a free online course that anybody can take. It's designed for folks who are technical, who are non-technical, and it covers several different modules. So there's a module on coding web applications to meet international W3C standards, a module on designing interfaces to meet the needs of people with disabilities, including older users, information on writing a business case to present to management, which is largely based on a resource that Sharon edited. Information on advocating for accessibility by understanding the real life experiences of how accessibility is essential for some and useful for all. That's a little tagline that we developed with some videos that I'll show you later. And we've just, that was really resonating. So accessibility is essential for people with disabilities and useful for everybody in different situations. And we have some information on managing accessibility in projects and organizations, and how to check web pages for basic accessibility issues and improving accessibility. So this course is really cool. It's designed modularly, so you can focus on the bits that you want to. You can dive deeper into certain topics depending on your interests. Again, the whole thing is free online, And also there is an optional certificate. So you can, if you want to get the certificate of completion, there's actually tests, you know, as you go along. So that course is, yeah, it's out there now. After WCAG 2.2 comes out. Oh, WCAG, WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Got it? Okay. I'm going to use that acronym too. WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. There. Okay, that's. Well, that is the question is, when does WCAG 2.2 come out? I'm going to show you where to find that answer. So, and you know what? It's near the end of the presentation, so you're going to just have to sit on the edge of your seat waiting. There you go. The visual description, he's on his edge of his seat with a very anticipatory face. Very good. Okay. Yeah, so we have that free online course. We have, oh, I was saying when that comes out, we're going to do an update of the course, but what's there is good now. We also have a list of other courses that you can take. That's something new. So we've invited anybody who provides an accessibility course to submit to this list. So you can find in-person, remote courses there. We have a curricula on web accessibility. So if you are developing a course, there's a curricula that you're welcome to use. And it has modules, foundation modules, and modules for developers, designers, and content authors. All right. Another thing that's what's new is we significantly updated a resource that's now has a long title, but that's to make it clear what it covers. So it's making events accessible, a checklist for meetings, conferences, trainings, presentations that are remote or virtual, in-person, and hybrid. Okay, so we've updated that resource, and that's something that's really any meetings, you know, of anyone who's going to meetings, setting up conferences, I'd encourage you to point them to that resource. Another thing that we have is some new user interfaces. So we've redesigned the way some things look. How many people have noticed that the WCAG understanding and techniques for 2.1 and 2.2 changed? I see, I can't see very well. I think there's about, what is that? 3/4 hands raised, something like that. Okay, good. Afterwards, tell me what you thought of it. We ended up doing it, I think, in December because we had to have it done by December 31st. So I think it was maybe the 25th. So yeah, good. So let me know what you think about that. So it's a redesigned interface for the WCAG understanding techniques. We also use the same general interface for the cognitive accessibility design patterns and the ARIA authoring practices guide. So hopefully you found that much more useful and aesthetically pleasing. I know I did. All right. Now, if you want to know what else we're working on, last year we started something we've been wanting to do for ages and finally got around to it. It's just a page where you can find what we're working on. So it's called What We're Working On. And it's accessibility activities and publications. I update that monthly. I said I was going to, and I had a hunch some people were just waiting for me to miss it. So that's a big thing on my calendar, the last of every month to update it. So far, I haven't missed it, but I know who's going to catch it if I do. Right. So yeah, I really encourage you, if you haven't seen this page, go in and take a look at it. The web address is w3.org/WAI/update. Yeah, take a look at the whole page. And I also have a nice changelog at the bottom. So you don't have to, every month, you don't have to read through the whole thing. You can just see what's changed in the changelog. So that'll help you know what we're working on. Really cool stuff. All right. So as Sharon said, you know, the WAI focuses on strategies, but we also on standards, but we also do supporting resources. So we do think about strategies, we think about the standards, we think about the supporting resources to make the web and really digital accessibility and make the web accessible to people with disabilities. Got it. Okay. So, here's working on how are we going to make an interactive session that's hybrid. And so this is semi, we'll see how it goes. I have a quiz. I'm going to give you a list of resources, and I want you to try to guess or figure out which of these are not on the WAI website. Okay. If you're a person who likes to interact with each other, then talk amongst your table briefly. If you're not, please feel comfortable just sitting there, not interacting. Okay. So we're all different kind of people. And I think maybe on the Zoom, I think that the chat may be up. So feel free to share your ideas. Okay. Here's what the options are. 1, an accessibility statement generator. 2, a document resource called Web Accessibility First Aid. 3, standards to make your LMS accessible. That's learning management system. 4, XR accessibility user requirements for virtual or immersive environments. 5 is RTC accessibility user requirements for real-time communication. 6 is a resource that when we were working on it, we called it How to Complain. 7 is translations in over 35 languages. Okay, just briefly, if you want to talk amongst yourself, which ones do you think are not on the WAI website? Did you say which ones? There may be, I'm not saying how many, just. I can't hear you. You want to put it here? Okay, I can talk louder. Okay. All right, what do you think? What do you think? Yell out. All right. Someone, which ones do you think? Just yell out a number. 2, 1, 1, 7, 6, 3, 1 and 3. Okay. Thank you for your input. We have an accessibility statement generator on the WAI website. So it walks you through questions and you put in your information and boom, it spits out an accessibility statement for you. And it's an HTML, so you can further edit it. This was funded by a European Commission project because as you may know that's a requirement in Europe. We have a document titled Web Accessibility First Aid, Approaches for Interim Repairs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. We have a resource called Standards to Make Your LMS Accessible. It's a new one. We also have one. So this is designed for you to tell LMS developers to follow the authoring tool accessibility guidelines, ATAG. And we have that one for social media and for no code tools. So that's, again, some new stuff. See, new stuff you didn't even know about. We do have XR accessibility user requirements and RTC accessibility user requirements. We have a series of like 5 relatively new user requirements resources. We do have a document called Contacting Organizations About Inaccessible Websites, but we always called it How to Complain when we were working on it. But we decided that wasn't really a good title. And we have translations in over 35 languages. So that's cool. I'm trying to decide if there's a couple more quizzes, and I think they're all trick questions. Just letting you know ahead of time. Maybe the last, no, they all are. I started to say maybe the last one's not. Sorry, no, they all are. But you know, I made a point. The big thing is, I mean, one of the biggest issues is that we have all these awesome resources that people don't know about it, but don't know about them. So I'm asking you today if you will take some nuggets and share them with others. Okay, because that's really what we need help with, is sharing the information that's out there. Okay. So next I want to talk about just some questions that people have. I'm going to go through some brief videos quickly, and then I'm going to go through all of those again later. So I'm not going to bother with the clarity now, because you'll hear them all again.
I had the accessibility validator tools. I want a list of them.
I need to convince my boss to give me time to make my web app accessible.
I don't know what accessibility means on the web.
And I want to do a session on accessibility. What should I cover?
I want to include people with disabilities in our design process.
We are looking for guidance on how to make our website easy to use by older people.
I need to write a report on website accessibility.
Can I print it as a handout for them?
I need help. I need help. I need help. I need help.
All right. That's okay, Victor. We can help you. So we have a resource for all these things, and I'm going to go through those. As I go through the video and audio files, they have the quotes in text. So if you can see the text, it's on there because some of them are hard to understand. And the ones that are hard to understand, I'll also restate the important points verbally. And you can ignore the little text at the bottom. It's just a note to me, so I remember what I intended to do.
Howdy, I need to write a report on website accessibility.
Okay, so now I'm going to jump into the WAI website and show you where to find the answers to several of these questions. All right. So I'm at our homepage, and I was trying to get Sharon and Brian to help me decide whether to show you in the configuration that I usually look at it or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, I use dark mode. I'm going to leave that on. I'll show you, also use like 200% line height. I'm going to turn that off because it's just harder to read on the screen. So just so you know what it looks like, the WAI website normally is a white background, but I'll let you see how I see it in dark mode. Did I hear a sigh? Yeah, okay, I guess that was the right decision. Right, from the WAI homepage, w3.org/WAI, the first link is in the main navigation is Accessibility Fundamentals. That has a bunch of resources on getting started with accessibility. And there's an introduction to accessibility. If you looked at this, haven't looked at this lately, we actually reorganized it a little and have a whole separate section on accessibility. It's about people, right? To focus on, so many people focus on the standards. Absolutely, they're an important tool, but fundamentally, accessibility is about people. So we organize some resources under there, and we have some more coming, including videos of people with disabilities. Right. Okay, next question.
I need to convince my boss to give me time to make my web app accessible.
We have several resources for that. As I mentioned, we have a business case for web accessibility that Sharon edited. We have these awesome videos we called perspectives videos. So from the accessibility fundamentals overview, there's a link I know what this is and I still can't see it. I know where everything is. Right, so there's a link to web accessibility perspectives, explore the impact and benefits for everyone. And these are the series of videos I told you about that we came up with a tagline, essential for some, useful for all, for these videos. The videos have, there's 10 different videos and they're short clips about 1 minute long that show how, like, for example, video captions, how they're useful for everyone and important for people, essential for people with disabilities. All right. Oh, we also have a resource. Oh, I got that. I cover that later.
Is this website accessible? I need to know if they are considering accessibility at all. However, I don't know much about accessibility myself.
We have a resource called Easy Checks, and Easy Checks is intended to help folks like this, whether it's procurement officers or people who, project managers, anyone who wants to figure out the basics, check some basic aspects of if a site is accessible. And the real cool thing about Easy Checks is we are right now in the process of totally revising it. And the even cooler thing is we have a prototype that we finished this morning so that you could look at it, so you could use it. So I'll mention this again later, but I'll promote it now. One of the great things about the other reason that Sharon convinced me to come out in the world is that Access U has given us some space to do some, get your feedback on the prototype. Okay, so after this session and sometime on Thursday will be available if you want to come by and get a sneak peek of the prototype. You can do that. And also we'll try to make that work for virtual participants as well. And I'll tell you more about that at the end.
I need help. I just came to know that we need to make our website accessible. I absolutely don't know where to begin with, how to do it, and I need to figure out how we can do this better.
Okay, so from the main navigation under planning and policies, we have a resource called Web Accessibility First Aid, Approaches for Interim Repairs. And this is really designed for those people who are like, what do I do? I don't know where to start. So that's a resource for that, for Victor.
Really expanding into new countries and need to know about the web accessibility laws.
All right, so they're expanding into new countries and need to know about accessibility laws around the world. Also from the planning and policies page, the last link is international laws and policies. And this resource it's really cool. It has like filters. You can search and sort for the different WCAG versions and things like that. Whether it's what type of law it is, the scope. And we are in the process of updating that right now as we speak. As a matter of fact, there's probably some things in my email box that I need to publish. So that's good. Those of you who noticed it had gotten out of date, sorry about that. But the cool thing is we're on it, actively on that right now.
I have been tasked with developing an accessibility course for our in-house team.
So interestingly, I get questions about this periodically, and I say, why? We've got a free course now, right? So, you know, certainly use the free course, but it's Creative Commons. So if there's a reason you need to create one for yourself, your organization, because you need it customized, you can use information from that course. As I said, we have the curricula. So for the curricula, you would get to that from the main navigation. There's a section called Teach and Advocate, and that has the curricula. Yep, curricula on web accessibility. All right, next, let's see what the next question is. Oh, he says we're going to make it online training and we need to make the videos accessible. All right, so now we go to my second favorite resource. Under design and develop, the main navigation, design and develop, there's a resource. The navigation is audio and video media. And that comes to a resource on making audio and video media accessible. This is a very comprehensive resource. It covers the things you would expect, like audio, description of visual information, captions, transcripts, sign language. But that's not the first thing it covers. The first thing it covers are actually, number one, the user experience. So again, just in general with accessibility, if you're starting from, if you just dive into the standards, it's deer in the headlights, right? It's not going to make sense. It's confusing. It's overwhelming. I'll mention this at the end, so don't start there. If you're looking at, if somebody says, I need to make my video accessible, don't start with a checklist, right? Instead, understand the concept. Okay, who needs to access this video? And what are the issues that I need to think about? So we start out with a user experience and benefits to organizations. And actually, I had forgotten, we have a presentation on this on the web. So if this is something you're interested in, I think if you just search for it, you can find it. But if not, let me know and I'll point you to it. Then we have a section on planning, that like for planning and managing. And so it helps you decide what you're going to do in-house, what you're going to outsource, things like that. And then the other big thing that's missing in a lot of resources, I think, is making the audio content and the video content itself accessible, right? For when you're doing a new video or whatever, what things do you need to think about beforehand, right? So things like making sure you're planning for a description of visual information. Make sure that site is not required to use the video because of the way you've designed it or scripting it. Make sure the text is not too hard to see. So this, again, this is when you're doing new videos. The other, sometimes you don't have the flexibility, you're having to retrofit old ones. So hopefully that's handy for folks doing audio and video. All right, next question.
Can't users assistive technology do everything? Why do we have to spend time on accessibility?
Have you heard anything like that before? Yeah. So we have a resource that kind of helps explain that, again, from the accessibility in the main navigation from Accessibility Fundamentals. There's a resource called the Components of Web Accessibility. And this basically explains the ecosystem, right? So there's things that developers need to do, and there's things that the browsers need to do, and things that the coders, designers need to do, and users, right? There's things that users need to know how to use their assistive technology. So this kind of helps explain that no, technology can't do it all by itself. We need developers and designers, coders to help to do their part for accessibility as well.
I've heard about people who are blind using screen readers. What other things do I need to know about how people with disabilities use the web?
We have a resource for that. Under Accessibility Fundamentals, under the Accessibility, It's About People tab, we have a resource called How People with Disabilities Use the Web. And again, we are two things on that. That's another one that we're in the process of updating. We've got the full, we're almost done with the final first version that we'll review and submit for approval. And we also have a series of videos that are going along with that. And I think those will be available pretty soon as well. And so I'll talk more about that I've mentioned a couple of things that are in progress. So at the end, after I answer your question about WCAG, then I'll say a little more about that.
I understand accessibility for people with disability generally, yet I don't know what accessibility mean on the web.
So if you know anybody who's getting started, just trying to understand the basics, we have another resource that in the old website, it was buried and everyone found it so useful. We brought it up a level, but it's called Accessibility Principles. And it's organized a lot like web content. It has perceivable, operable, etc. But it's nice. It's much shorter and easier to understand. So I'll mention it at the end that that's a good stepping stone for people who are learning about accessibility.
We are redesigning our investment services website. Our customers are mostly retirement age, so we are looking for guidance on how to make our website easy to use by older people.
Okay, in that accessibility is about people, we have a whole section on designing for older users. By the way, if you're looking at the business case, this is an important aspect for a lot of organizations, is making sure the site's accessible for older users. And this resource like points out which of the WCAG techniques are particularly important for older users.
In the project management director at my company, I have been tasked with training our project managers to incorporate accessibility into their workflow. However, I don't know much about accessibility.
So this project management director is looking at training project managers to incorporate accessibility into their workflow. And we have a resource for that. So from the main navigation, again, under planning and policies, there's a resource called Planning and Managing Web Accessibility. And that covers one of your favorites. Cool. You remember Kevin did this. Yeah. So this has a section on like initiate, plan, implement, sustained. Pretty good about having, bullet points to give you a summary you can look through and dive into, get more information about the things that are relevant for your organization.
I have a user experience background, and I want to include people with disabilities in our design process. I need help convincing my department head to let us do it, and I could use some tips.
Okay, another one of my passionate areas. I love that we have a good resource for that. So we actually, how this came about, we have resources on evaluation, and there was motivation to write a resource on, I think one of the projects we did wanted a resource on including users in evaluation. So we did that, and my skin was itching because because you shouldn't wait that long, right? So I said, the group agreed we need to help promote and encourage and support people, including users with disabilities and designers and coders, from the very beginning of a project, right? Don't wait till the evaluation stage. So we have a resource called Involving Users in Web Projects for Better, Easier Accessibility. Okay, and it actually does two things. Number one, it helps you convince people to do that, like project managers, and then it gives you some tips for how to do that. Okay, so that's Involving Users in Web Projects for Better, Easier Accessibility. And then the secondary page is Involving Users in Evaluation.
WAI first discuss our new accessibility directories to develop an accessibility policy for our company.
Okay, it needs to develop an accessibility policy for a company. So in this planning and managing, we have that topic, developing an organizational policy, and it gives you guidelines and examples. And this is also where you'll find the one I mentioned, the accessibility statement generator. So the first page gives you guidance on how to do that. And then a sub page, again, will walk you through the steps for that.
I teach a technical writing course, and I want to do a session on accessibility. What should I cover?
All right, to answer that question, we're going to go to, from the main navigation, the Design and Develop tab. And we have a series of tips for getting started. So tips for getting started, writing about writing for web accessibility, designing user interfaces and visual design, and developing markup and coding. So those are pretty short, succinct, well illustrated text. So Sharon's happy because there's not a wall of text. Sharon doesn't like it when we have lots and lots of text. But on this, I'm going to zoom in just to show you, there's lots of examples of each of these. All right.
I work as an accessibility consultant, and I'm looking for a detailed guidance on how to make forms accessible.
All right, this goes into what Sharon had mentioned, the tutorials. So from the Design and Develop section, there's a page on tutorials. We have tutorials covering right now page structure, menus, images, tables, forms, and carousels. And yeah, these have been hugely popular. And again, really exciting thing is we've hooked someone in to edit those. So Brian Elton over here is updating those for us, and Laura Keene is helping as well. So yay! So that backlog of open issues, how many did we close? We worked out yesterday and we did a dance every time we closed an issue.
I had the accessibility validator tools. I want a list of them and help picking which one to use.
We have a list of evaluation tools. It got very old, so we are redoing it right now. So that's another thing that we within the next couple months that we'll put out a submission form. We're actually going to start new because we're getting better data to make it more useful for you. And so you can see the list that's out there now, and then we'll be having an updated one. The list that's there now is up to date. There's some old tools that we haven't dropped off, but the new one will have a little better data for you.
For my research project, I need to do thorough accessibility evaluation of websites and generate conformance reports. I am looking for guidance on the evaluation process and report format.
Okay, so this person is looking for guidance on evaluation and report format. And Chris Law just left when I was going to look at him. All right. So we have a resource for that. From the main navigation, there's a page on test and evaluate. And we have a section on conformance evaluation and reports. And there's a resource called WCAG EM, which is the website evaluation. Thank you. When you use acronyms so much, you forget. Right. Website conformance, accessibility conformance evaluation methodology. And we also have a WCAG EM report tool. So again, it will walk you through, it's pretty robust. It'll walk you through defining what pages you're evaluating, and you can put in the data and it'll generate a report for you. And again, it's all in HTML, so you can customize it. So the WCAG EM report generator. We also, by the way, have an ATAG report tool for authoring tool accessibility guidelines. Yeah, so if you know anyone who designs vendors for authoring tools, that's a relatively new resource as well. Okay.
I am organizing an accessibility check at our conference and want to make sure the presentations are fully accessible.
I mentioned at the beginning that resource on making events accessible. So where you find that is from the main navigation under Teach and Advocate. And it's the first link. Making events accessible.
I would like some actual examples of fixing accessibility barriers.
We have a resource that's bad. Oh, that's the acronym. It's called the Before and After Demo. Bad. So the Before and After Demo. And what this does is it has an example website, and it has the before version with a bunch of accessibility errors, and then the after version with all those accessibility errors fixed. And it's annotated so you can, see those, and it has an example evaluation report. So some people have found that really useful for teaching, useful tool for teaching. I will say the visual design is outdated. Well, we haven't prioritized. That's a major project. So if somebody wants to fix it, update it, let us know. But right now it's on our list, but not high. When we brought it up recently, one of the EO participants that uses it for teaching classes said, it works. So that some people find that bad, good, something like that. Yep.
Erica, tell me about this website. This website is not accessible.
Okay, so that resource that we said we used to call How to Complain, under Teach and Advocate, the resource is contacting organizations about inaccessible websites. We've spent a fair bit of time on this, thinking about the right approach. I would encourage you to read this. Personally, one of my big things is to approach organizations positively, right, and friendly and encouraging. And certainly, and sometimes that's hard. I'll be yelling at the computer because of inaccessibility, and then try to be nice, focus myself, not yell at the first contact. And obviously, depending on how things go, you might need to escalate that. But this page helps kind of guide you through some approaches on that.
We are looking for guidelines or standards for mobile accessibility.
Okay, I'm not going to say a lot in detail about this, but I'll tell you where you can find information. So from the Standards and Guidelines tab, or main navigation link, way down at the bottom, there is a link to mobile accessibility at W3C, and that'll give you information about that. And then we have a question coming up, but I'll just show you. We also have a resource on cognitive accessibility at W3C. So we've been doing a lot of work on cognitive accessibility, and that page will tell you what we're doing now, what's already available, what's coming up. And that's it. So we want to go beyond minimum requirements and make our app highly usable by people with cognitive and learning impairments, and that's a resource for that person.
Should I link to the WCAG 2.1 standard or something else?
Okay, so that's a lot about the resources. We actually also have some guidance for just using our stuff, right? So here's one of the things I want to ask. If you're going to point someone to WCAG, don't point someone to WCAG. Okay, as I said before, WCAG itself is a technical standard, right? So when you need to reference a technical standard, reference technical standard. Otherwise, there's other resources that are good for the intro to WCAG, actually using WCAG to design and code. And we have a page that just basically says how to reference the guidelines and points to that. And I don't know if I have this now or later, so we'll see.
Your information on the WAI website is really useful for my students.
Can I print it as a handout for them?
Right. So the answer is yes. So we have basically you can use the resources most things you're welcome to use them as is, as long as you provide, credit and a link to the URL where the source file is, right? So you can use it a handout, you can put it on your intranet, you can do whatever you want, as long as you say this is where it's from. Then we do have several resources that are Creative Commons that we want you to take them and change them and use them, like the curricula. Okay, this was where I was going to say a little bit more about WCAG. How am I doing on time? I'm going to do this quickly. All right. Huh? Yep. Okay. So I've mentioned this before. Don't point people to WCAG, and this is what I would say. Instead, first thing is go to the Intro to Accessibility. That will also point to how people with disabilities use the web and the background. But for WCAG specifically, start with a WCAG overview. So if you're pointing people, point them to the WCAG overview. We also have a WCAG at a glance, which is a nice, easy to process one-page sheet. The principles I mentioned, it kind of goes to the next step. The WCAG 2 documents explains the techniques and the understanding, things like that. And then the quick ref, the WCAG quick ref, or how to meet WCAG. So those are pointers instead of jumping right into the standards. All right, are you ready? Okay, I gotta get a picture. One moment, please. Sorry, the visual description just doesn't do good. This. I have to get a picture of our either. No. May I take a picture? Okay. So, all right, here's the answer. Drum roll.
Was coming in WCAG 2.2 and when?
And when? Anyone know where to find the answer? Does anyone know where to find the answer to that question? On the updates page. Yeah. So we have a resource. Actually, I'm sitting there going, is it on the updates page? I guess we'll see, huh? I think, let's see. So on the updates page. Yeah, I got to have put it there. Right, on the updates page, there is a section on web content on WCAG 2.2, and it says, get the latest, what does it say? Get the latest up-to-date information from what's new in WCAG 2.2. If you go to what's new in WCAG 2.2, that's what I should do. There's a section on introduction, timeline, and changes. So what has happened with WCAG 2? We're currently not, or 2.2, we're currently not planning to do a 2.3. So the working group is really trying to get this right. So we've gone to, the working group thought we're done with it, and then got a lot of comments. So we put out another, we're done with it, and got a lot of comments. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that this is it. So we are, the working group has approved the current version, and it is now available as the editor's draft as of last week. Okay, so all the changes are now in the editor's draft. We just have to publish that to the technical report page. We just have to formally publish it, but all those are in there now. You can see all the changes. We all really hope it'll go through this time. So there's basically a 30-day approval for the next 3 stages. So the earliest it could be, see, this is let's say like July. Is the earliest it will be. And if you're interested in the process, there's a link there to the process. Okay. So pretty close, certain that there aren't going to be changes from what's there now. And then it'll be final in July. But the thing is, I can't tell you if we get comments and we have to address them, right? I mean, we want to address them. We want to get it out. So it's a tough balance there. If you haven't looked at it, this page is really cool. So it does have a little bit, it explains the introduction timeline and changes. It lists what changed from WCAG 2.1 to 2.2. What are the changes to the latest version? So if you've been following along, this shows what's changed since the January publication. And then what it has is it introduces each of the new success criteria with a little persona. So a scenario and a quote. So this is, that's not a good one. Let me find a better one. Okay. So this is on dragging movements is the success criteria. And the persona is a retiree with a hand trimmer. And the problem when the website's not working well, the quote is, I cannot hold down the mouse button and drag it accurately enough to move the items in the list. But then when the success criteria is followed, it works well. And the quote is, when I click on an item in the list, I get up and down arrows and I can click those to change the order. So basically this resource introduces all the new success criteria with nice little nice, easy to digest quotes, persona quotes.
What about WCAG 3?
Okay, what about WCAG 3? The big thing to understand is it's years away. And I've seen marketing companies pointing to like, oh, follow the new WCAG 3. And if you see that, they're off. It's a long way off. There's this, the version that's out there now is totally changed. Hopefully the working group will soon approve publishing the updated version. There's still not a lot in there, but they've done a better job at marking what stage it is. Like, look, this bit it's just exploratory. Don't even think about trying to, call it done versus, and then the later stages. What else? And we have a page. There's a page, the intro to WCAG 3 as well. So that's a ways away. WCAG 3, if you haven't looked, it's totally different approach, a major different rethinking on how to do the guidelines. Okay, quiz time. First question: how many WAI staff? How many WAI staff are there around the world? And I'll tell you, currently we have staff in North America, Europe, and China. So there's two answers, two options. A is less than 5 and B is more than 5. Okay, if you feel like raising your hands, don't have to if you don't want to. Who thinks it's A, less than 5? A few hands. Who thinks it's B, more than 5? A few more hands. Okay, if this was a trick question, what would the answer be? 5. Yeah. So we have 5 staff. And Brian was actually surprised about that. So I thought, oh, I'll add that in. It's a lot of stuff to get done with just 5 of us. So basically the work is done not by the staff, but by you, by W3C member companies and by volunteers. So next question: who can edit W3C working group resources? A, anyone in the world. B, all working group participants. C, working group chairs. D, WAI staff. Or E, both working group chairs and WAI staff. It is a trick question. I told you they were all trick questions. But what do you think? What's your gut? It's actually all of the above and none of the above. Okay, here's the deal. If there's a working group resource, it's an official working group publication, it has to be, any changes have to be approved by the entire working group. Okay, so anyone in the world can suggest an edit. You can go in right now in GitHub or an email and propose an edit to anything. You can do that. Okay. And we wish Sharon says we wish you would. But everything has to be approved by the working group. Okay. So just FYI. Okay.
I have a suggestion for an edit. Where do I send it?
How do you do that? At the bottom of almost every page all pages is a link to either GitHub or email to send that in.
This is good stuff. How can I help?
I hope you will help. So, as I mentioned, we're doing a feedback session here right after this in Trustee Hall 118. We're going to go there after this. We'll be there most of the afternoon. On Thursday from 2 to 3:30, we'll be over there. And then other times we may or may not be, depending on what sessions we go to. So please just stop by and see if we're there. And we'd love to get your feedback. If you're virtual and you want to try to set up a session, you can send an email to WAI-EO-call@w3.org. We particularly need technical editors. So if you know anyone who's a good editor, have them get in touch.
How can I get notified of new WAI resources?
We have an announcement list, so I encourage you to sign up for that. And the last question.
Any suggestions for songs to add to my playlist?
I actually do have a suggestion. I don't know if y'all have heard the WCAG 2 theme song. All right. But follow up on the WCAG 2 theme song. Becky, is there 2 versions? There's an old one and a new one? I can't remember. Any WCAG 2 theme song. It's a hoot. My only warning is you'll be singing it for days. Yeah, it's very clever. And it was this written by a musician who's a part of the working group. Finally, when I was doing the videos, one of the daughter of one of the person wanted to be in a video, so I taught her how to say accessible.
I want to make the web accessible.
All right. I hope that you all will help us make the web accessible, and you can join us today in Trustee 118. Thank you so much for all your time and attention. I want to see if I can save the chat. Shoot. How can I save the chat? Sorry. I just want to try to do this. Sharon, can I save this chat or will they do it?
Would you answer her question?
How can I save the chat?
Hello, if you haven't left yet, just a reminder that we have an event tonight in the Umlauf Sculpture Garden. There's a shuttle that runs from the hotel I think a couple of rounds. And we hope it doesn't rain because it's a garden. And we're going to do tours for blind visitors, tours for deaf visitors. There's going to be some really great food since you didn't get fed for lunch here today, some of you, and drinks, and even ASL described karaoke. So all of that's on the website, all the details, but spread the word because it should be a really fun event.